Welcome to our Saturday edition of Breakfast with Bob. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We were just listening to the Kim and the Ching. Thank you very much, ladies. Appreciate that. We are on triathlete.com, and our next guest, the 2012 Ironman World Champion, Mr. Pete Jacobs. Pete, how the heck are you?
Very well. Thank you, Bob. It's great to be here.
You've been doing a little bit of traveling since Kona this year.
Yeah, quite a lot. I can't remember all the places we went to, but we're in New York for the New York Marathon, and Jamie and I ran that together.
You ran the marathon. How was that?
Yeah, an awesome experience. A real bucket list thing to do, and it was a great opportunity to do that. And obviously went there for ASICS and did a few appearances and things with them, and they're a big sponsor of the race. So it was a great experience, and we were lucky that we kind of had the VIP treatment in the morning because it's a big day. It's all the buses or ferries, whatever it is however you get out there, and then you got to sit around and wait, and it's cold, and it's cold.
If you don't have the VIP thing, you are out of luck, man. That's a tough place.
Yeah, it would be tough to do a good time there for sure, because you're sitting around for some of them have to get there probably 3 hours before the race in the cold.
Yeah.
And but that was a fantastic experience. And then we went for the Boardman 2014 launch in London.
Yeah.
And
with the Brownlees.
Yeah, met the Brownlees for the first time.
Oh, you hadn't met them?
No. So that was
Alistair
fantastic.
and Johnny are really good kids.
Yeah, really good to chat to, and smart kids, and just what they're doing intuitively, is leap years beyond their age, and it goes to show with their results.
Well, what I love about them and yourself is we're seeing people come into the sport who are into growing the sport. They're not just looking to, hey, I'm an athlete, I'm going to go win races, give me money. It's like, hey, we want to put on kids' races. We want people to get involved. So they want the next generation to love the sport as much as they do.
Absolutely. Their Brownlee Tri this year was a hit. And next year they're going to have a few. And, most of the people that go and do that are complete newbies. First triathlon they've ever done, the majority of those races. And, they're taking them to new places in England, which, the national park type places. Yeah. And, they're experiencing such a great atmosphere and a great, that rush of a triathlon that we all know so well.
Right.
So they're bringing so many new people into the sport. It's amazing what they're doing.
So being at the New York City Marathon Expo, had you been at a major event like that before?
I went to the LA Marathon earlier this year.
Okay.
But
that's right.
New York
was a different world.
New York was a huge step.
Yeah.
And, the expo, how big the expo is, how much merchandise ASICS have, like all the ING Marathon merchandise. Everybody just loves it. Everybody buys something, and
of course,
the mementos. It's a pretty cool memento to have.
Now, what's been interesting, it used to be if you were a runner, you were a runner, and when triathlon started, you were sort of in this little subset, and people really didn't cross over. I feel that people do a lot of everything now. When you were at the marathon, did it surprise you how many people knew who you were?
Yeah, it did. Particularly when you're in a field of 50,000 people.
Exactly.
And people are coming up, and I was dressed in the same gear as everybody else.
Yeah.
I wasn't wearing
I
wasn't wearing a sign with flashing lights
or a tri-suit. You weren't wearing you weren't wearing a Speedo type of thing. Yeah.
And people would run up from behind, and they'd pass me from behind, and actually I had quite a surprising amount of people that would say, "Oh, hey, Pete, is it?" Yeah. Or I'd met them before, and then when I'd run with them for a little bit, and it was an amazing experience to, it was great to be able to meet and chat with people along while you're doing a marathon, as opposed to, well, actually, I'll take that back. Well, Luke Bell and I had a good chat in Kona this year.
Well, speaking of that, so you go into Kona, obviously, as the champion. Anytime you're champion, you got that number one on. People, if you're having your day or not having your day, people are going to be sitting on you, right, and watching you all day long. How long was it into the race before you realized you weren't having your day?
I think, when was it? I mean, tactically the swim didn't go great as well as it did last year. Just, where I was positioned wasn't as good, wasn't as comfortable. But onto the bike, feeling good. I was really surprised that I got that 20 seconds through transition and was able to do my own pace through town, and that was perfect because I just knew that I needed to get onto the Queen K up near the front and not to have to do, it worked out okay, last year. But I had to be really patient and when I chose to pass people, because you've got to really watch that passing, that long line, that long train of people. So this year I was like first onto the Queen K and just was like, wow, this is awesome. You know,
Yeah.
perfect position. I should say second because Starkowitz had
Exactly.
passed us. But, you know, of that group up the front, and I was like, this is where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
Perfect. And, you know, I swapped turns with Faris was the other guy up the front. He and I sort of were taking the lead. And, you know, then when we got to just before Kauai High, you know, so the last sort of little hill, and then you turn just before those last couple of rollers. A few people came past when I sort of slowed down because there was a couple of people in front of us. Suddenly, the next hill, 7 guys went past on one hill. And, you know, it's...
When you get
I'm not going to say, you know, they all should have been done, but, you know, it's tough when... You know, you're kind of sticking by the rules, and I put the brakes on the hill because I knew that, you know...
You didn't want to get close.
You can't get close, but suddenly 7 guys all go past at once and then hit the corner, and, you know, so there's times where it's not held to the same kind of rules.
The standards change.
Yeah,
from
it kind of does.
To race to official to official.
Yeah, and in a moment where 7 guys all kind of make a move together.
Right. That's weird.
It's hard. You can't do anything about it.
Right.
And I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's just saying that it's not one rule.
It's not what you
It's not
expected.
exactly the same all the time, kind of thing. So suddenly, bang, and I'm back in 12th.
Right.
You know, and then we hit the shorter, sharper rollers of up towards
Kauai High.
from Kauai High to Harvey.
Yeah.
You know, and then I started to feel the pinch. Whether it was that I was put in a position where suddenly I've got to go really hard over the hill and down the hill, while, you know, Sebastian's on the front now, you know, basically on the fastest section of the hill in front.
Right.
And I'm on the slower section of
So
the
he's
hill
gaining
behind.
time, yeah.
And I'm having to really get out of my comfort zone. So whether it was a coincidence or whether it was, you know, that I had to get out of my comfort zone at that point. But then, you know, I just started losing power, and then my back tightened up.
And you've had that with the back. And
yeah, it showed up the day before the Sunny Coast 70.3. So, someone's
that?
phone's ringing.
What is that?
Yeah, keep going. Keep going.
So
Okay.
keep going. So, you know, the day before Sunny Coast 70.3,
Yeah.
my back got tight, and you know, but the race went so well that I just kind of put that out of my mind and went, look, I'm stronger mentally, physically, and I've only got, you know, 2 weeks before I head to Hawaii.
Right.
I've still got to do these sessions, and I was so focused on still climbing this trajectory of where I thought I needed to get to for Hawaii,
Yep.
that I didn't stop and go, what do I need to do to get my body in good shape for tomorrow?
So your back was, you knew it was
Yeah.
there, but you felt like, hey, I still had a great race. You had a great run that day, right?
Yeah, I rode brilliant ride, and I ran. My back was tight at the start of the run, but
But it loosened up.
It loosened up, and I ran negative split it, and it was fine. My back was tight, you know, in 2012 in the run, and it loosened up. You know, but I was so confident. It was slightly different this year, but you know, I was really just like, no, I'm confident that when I start to back it off in taper mode,
Right.
you know, that I'll be able to deal with it at that point. And you know, I just didn't, because I was still reinforcing it for that last month. I was still training. I was still niggling. I'm noticing it, and when really I should have stopped, taken a week off if I needed to, sorted
get
it
the
out,
back, yeah.
and I would have been in much better shape come race day. So things that you learn, and you know, you got to have those bad races to learn. So I'm actually really grateful that happened, because it really made me take stock, and you know, I've really changed you know, how I'm approaching things now.
So how have you changed?
A big part of it is that that whole, you know, don't have that end goal. You know, you've got 8 weeks to get from here to there,
Right.
and you need to keep going like this.
No matter what.
Yeah, you don't have a choice,
Yeah.
and that is your mindset, and that's wrong. I know that's wrong now, and I'll never put myself in that position again.
Right.
So from now on, it's much more pretty much race when I'm ready. You know, even if there is a race, I'll be able to be in the moment, so that I'm able to take stock of what's actually important today.
Right.
Not worry about what I think I need to do for a month away or 6 weeks, or 2 months, 3 months, and just be, what do I need to do today to get my body in the best shape it can be, you know, for tomorrow. So yeah, that's changed. Basically, you know, I'm going to get in great shape December, January, February. I'm going to start building up with no timeline, you know, with no
event
I need to do
I have
these
to do.
sessions, and
Yeah.
pretty much I'll be able to do it, all sorts of sessions from long, slow stuff to, you know, 100-meter sprints and everything in between, because I've got that time
Right.
to do that. Whereas, you know, before Hawaii, there was no time to do much of anything else other than what I thought I needed to do. The long kind of tempo stuff, and
Sure.
I kind of got stuck in that place. And
Well, you know, the hard part sometimes is you had success in 2012.
Yeah.
And you go back and you look, hey, why change a recipe?
Yeah.
I did my time trial. This time trial I did 4 weeks out. This one I did 2 weeks out. And I sort of have to do the same thing. And if you look at the history, you know, Craig Alexander would go to Muskoka. He knew he needed that a month out. And, you know, Rinny this year, basically her Muskoka race was similar to what she did when she won in 2010. So it's, you know, sometimes you fall into that, hey, this is what worked last time, and I've got to follow that path no matter what.
exactly. And when things pop up that,
Yeah.
you know, you kind of just sweep them under the rug, which, you know, you shouldn't be doing. And, you know, I think we all do that as athletes, and I'm seeing it all the time. But, you know, it's not until someone can't tell you it, you've got to learn it for yourself.
Right.
So many mistakes. So, you know, I'm really pleased that I've learnt that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've still got many, many more years in Kona to achieve what I want to achieve there.
Exactly. So when you get off the bike, and at that point, I think you're probably thinking, okay, I'm not winning this race.
No, it was a big gap.
Yeah. But then you hook up with Luke Bell, and you guys had you basically chatted. And how hard is that, coming off of being the champion, to having a day, you know, and everybody's had those days, where you just have a day where you just sort of have to make the best of whatever you got?
Well, it was kind of comforting that, you know, on the way back through town, you know, we picked up Luke, on the way back on the bike ride, from, you know, Kauai High in, we picked up Crowe, we picked up Luke, Jordan Rapp either caught us or we picked him up. So when we got off the bike, there's actually a group of 4 of us running together, you know, really closely pretty much for like the first probably 15 Ks or something like that, maybe 20 Ks nearly. Crowe had dropped off, you know, and Luke and I were running pretty well. We're just jogging along. We're kind of just jogging, comfortable, thinking we're going okay. And then Luke started to feel lousy, you know, getting a hip thing or something. I can't remember. And, you know, and then my, you know, I drunk something that I shouldn't have drunk, and not drunk enough on the bike. And so my guts then seized up. And, you know, so then the 2 of us really slowed down, and we walked pretty much most of the energy lab all the way back up the hill, because that's a brutal hill. And it's kind of like, if you're not in the race, then you don't have to put yourself through that uphill out of the energy lab.
Yeah.
We chose not to participate in that. We walked all the way up, and then you know, we got each other home really. Like, you know, when he you know, went to go to the toilet, or when he needed to walk, you know, I'd wait.
You'd wait.
And then likewise, when I was really struggling with cramping, he'd wait for a bit, and we walked a lot of aid stations. Yeah, it was really good to you know, have that. And then Crowe ran past us, so he'd slowed down and struggled, but he kind of just kept going through, and he went through us. And you know, at the end of the day, we just said, look, it doesn't matter. And it is just funny. Luke says as we're coming down Palani, he says, I gave up candy for this. It's like, what's it all for?
What's it all for? I got so skinny.
And I'm like, I gave up ice cream.
What the heck? I could have had all that enjoyable stuff. Wow.
But those are the things we do, whether it helps you physically, it keeps you on track mentally to give up some things. And that's why I do it, yeah.
So this year, I'm imagining the build-up will be back towards Kona. Is that the number one priority?
Yeah, it is. But but really, it is getting in Kona shape. You know, in January almost.
Oh, really?
Well, not in Kona shape, but in good enough shape where there's no longer this like, oh, okay, I've got to constantly improve from, you know, the last 2 months.
Right.
So much more. You know, you look at the guys that did well, and you know, Freddie Van Leerd, Luke McKenzie, Seb had an injury, but you know, did really well at 70.3, and then, you know, Terenzo, the back end of his season.
Oh my God,
guys that, you know, once they get strong, they can stay strong and, you know, keep racing really well. And you know, that's what I want to do. I want to get in good shape early with no deadline.
Right.
Take my time, sort everything out, and then once I'm in good shape, that just means you've got time to do the things that you need to do, rather than being under pressure of constantly improving.
Right.
You know, so once I'm in good shape, you know, in end of Feb, I guess, you know, I just try and maintain that all year. Race often, race a lot, which I'm really looking forward to, since, you know, last 4 years I've had injuries. And
usually
you know,
you're injured starting in the winter, right?
Starting in the year, yeah. And, you know, this year I know that I can avoid that, because I've just, you know, I've learnt more again. I'm smarter again. And, you know, so I'm really looking forward to the build-up and next season of racing.
Have you raced in this part of the world before, in Asia?
Raced a lot in Asia. I've raced 5 or 6 times the Philippines.
Okay.
70.3. And what else have I done in Asia? Some smaller races in Malaysia a couple of times. But first time in Thailand.
Yes. Well, what are your impressions so far?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's just like all of Asia. Everyone's so accommodating, friendly, just a great vibe. You know, Jamie and I just love it. It's, you know, it's a really different vibe, you know, just because everybody's, you know, friendly and...
it's more casual.
Yeah, it's more casual and...
does not quite have that Kona-esque intensity, you mean?
Yeah, yeah. And just on the streets, you know, and in the traffic and things, it's organised chaos.
Yes.
But it works. You know, people aren't getting road rage on the roads here, even though it is so chaotic. It's just different here.
People
you know?
just deal with it.
Yeah, they just, exactly. They deal with things and they stay calm and it's just a way of life.
Were you surprised that Freddie Van Leerde won?
Look, I didn't analyse the race at all beforehand.
Yeah.
But looking back at the results, it's you know, he fits exactly in with the percentages of who should have won.
Right.
You know, he's gone, you know, his trajectory of results in Kona, as it always is. You look at the history books and see who
went from 11th to 6th to 3rd.
Yeah,
to
who was in the top 3 or 4 from the previous year. One of those guys are going to win it. It's the majority, like 80 or 90% is from that. And so, you know, it wasn't that surprising. You know, and he did so well throughout the year.
Right.
In his other major races. And, you know, I'd always sort of been reminded and talked about Luke McKenzie's race in Cairns. You know, he rode so solid there, you know, back in June as well. So here are 2 guys that just were in great shape back in June. And then, you know, they just knew what they needed to do. It wasn't like a rush.
Right.
Or it appears from their results that it wasn't a rush. You know, Luke then raced, you know, he had to go and race Worlds, and he also went and raced 5150, didn't he? High V.
I think he did, yeah.
So the fact that he was comfortable enough in his training and where he was at, that he could go do those 2 events and all that travel, you know, kind of says, yeah, he was in good shape, and maybe the breaks of those races might have helped as well, because, you know, it gave him a bit of rest time maybe.
Yeah.
And, you know, so, but anyway, those guys that got in good shape early, you know, are the guys that did well, and Seb as well, good shape, great shape, obviously, at Vegas, and, you know, and then was able to, you know, do what he needed to do. And he's so relaxed and as well that, you know.
So the run times this year were a lot slower. I mean, we had, 244, 247, and then, you know, 251 for Freddie.
Yeah, and then put Rinny in there at 250.
Rinny had the 3rd fastest run of the day, yeah. So when you look at that, was it because it seemed like there was a lot more jockeying for position on the bike, and a lot of people accelerating and maybe getting out of comfort zones and pushing watts they shouldn't have been pushing, or, you know, basically it was a bike race. It seemed like.
Well, Sebastian caught up real early.
Okay.
You know, compared to last year, he only caught me on the climb up to Harvey.
Oh.
Whereas this year he caught probably just after Waikoloa, like just like you know, what's that, 45K?
Yeah, 45K or so. Yeah, 40, 45.
So, you know, the pace sort of picked up there, and then he was leading everyone through all those undulations of up between Kauai High and Harvey, and those undulations are pretty steep and hard, and, you know, it hurt me, and, you know, so that's where he sort of strung a few people out, and I think people realised that they needed to be up there. You know, you couldn't let too many people go, because you know, you never know who's going to win it.
Sure.
And, I think the fact that I got away last year, you know, I don't think people wanted to see too many other people go up the road this year. So they probably hurt themselves a lot. But look, I don't know why. It is one of those races that it's not about who's fastest. It's not about the times and all of that. It is just, you know, on the day, who feels best on the day. And that's all you've got to do is just not slow down and just be in good shape that you can have a solid race. You know, it's all it is. It's such a different animal, because the pressure of the build up for people, the pressure of race day, expectations, and all that stuff just, you know, makes it such a different animal.
Well, and I think what makes it a different animal, people talk about the conditions and the wind and the heat and the rest of it. To me, it's the competition. I mean, it's the fact that you've got 20 guys there who really are thinking, I can win this race if things break my way.
Yeah, that big train on the bike
Yeah.
really puts a lot of people under pressure, because that's the only race where you've got a train of 20 of the best guys in the world all
Yeah.
riding together, and you're all watching one another.
Yeah.
You know, that's a lot
psychological.
of pressure.
Yeah. It
absolutely.
breaks you down in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, that's it's really tough, and it's a very unique race, and it's tough to be able to, you know, stay in control of
Right.
things and yourself in that position. Yeah.
Well, when there's other races that you do, if there's like 4 or 5 male pros in a race, if you have a little down like you had in Kona, you can still come back from that, right?
Yeah.
And go, okay, I can still be on the podium.
Yeah.
Because it's not, the fields aren't that deep. But once you're back in that race, it's over.
Yeah, it's and I think just the whole train experience makes it really tough on people. I don't think they put enough emphasis on how tough it is when there's a guy, you know, a couple hundred meters in front of you,
Yeah.
that's already on the fast section of the hill,
Yes.
and you're on the slower section, and you know, and that's maybe in 5th place, and
Right.
then there's 10th, and there's 15th. I mean,
Right.
that repercussions of that train are really tough on everyone in the race, and you know, if you can, you know, break away early, that worked really well for me last year. I rode my own race,
Yeah.
and but everyone hurts.
When I look at the history of it, and you've got over the years a lot of top pros, Paulie Kiru, Jürgen Zach, and a lot of guys end up walking part of that marathon. And usually what happens is the age group folks really get into that. They're like, okay, it's really cool that Pete's sort of like me walking his way up the energy lab, right? Have you had comments like that from other athletes going, hey, it's great that you finished? Because a lot of guys, listen, especially this whole validating thing,
Yeah.
it would have been easy for you to go, I don't really need to be walking. I've been there. I know the course.
Yeah.
I don't need to be running the Ironman Marathon today. I could pull the plug and go to Florida or go to Arizona and get my validation out of the way and worry about next season.
Yeah. No, I've had a lot of positive comments,
Yeah.
you know, just through social media and
Yeah.
people that I met, particularly there in Kona the week afterwards. And it's really nice that, you know, but at the same time, you know, there are times, and those athletes that when they do have to pull out, you know, I don't think it's fair that they get hit
No.
by people saying, oh, they didn't finish, you know, because, you know, at the end of the day, there's a lot at stake. It's your health, for one thing.
Yep. Making a living.
Yeah, making a living is the other thing. You know, 2 very important factors. And,
Yes.
But yeah, it's really nice that you know, people appreciate that I wasn't putting myself at risk or anything. And I always need to take off after Kona, some time off, so it
Right.
didn't even enter my mind to go and do another race or anything. You know, I knew that my body wasn't right there,
So it's not gonna be right
in another couple of weeks or something. So. You know, back to the drawing board and figure it all out for next year. Yeah, so like I say, it's I know that I do know the course, but I DNF'd my first attempt at Kona in 2004, and I was just so fatigued that year, and you know, so tired from training that I was emotionally and physically just so spent at the end of the ride that I just couldn't continue on. Like, I couldn't wrap my head around getting out there and walk. It would have
Right.
it would have put me in an even bigger hole,
Yep.
physically and mentally. I would have just, you know, really struggled, and I did struggle. It was as it was. It took me months to recover from that, and you know, so you know, there are times when you need to pull out, and you know, I don't think it's you know, anyone else should say that they were soft or anything like that. But yeah, I'm pleased that I did, and I'm stoked that I got the medal, and you know, I really, you know, treasure those Ironman medals. The world champs medals are you know, really special.
So for this race, like you said, you've been traveling all but a few days since. When did you take your bike out of the box, and have you ridden much?
Yeah, I don't think I've ridden much at all yet. Yeah, the Kona bike's still in the box,
Okay.
definitely. And actually, no, I lie. I took it out. We had to do some filming for an ASICS, you know, online video that they were putting together about triathletes, and so that was 2 days of filming. We were home for 3 days, you know, after Kona.
Yeah.
Well, after Kona, I went straight to a bucks party, or what do you call it, a stag party, or
a
bachelor party.
Yeah,
Bachelor party. So I had a couple of nights straight off the plane there, and then I was home for 3 days, and 2 of those days was filming for ASICS.
ASICS, yeah.
So whether it was running, swimming, riding, and you know, cooking breakfast or whatever it was, they filmed everything
Right.
for 2 days. And then we had a day which was pretty much packing for the next trip, and ran the marathon, which was good training, a good hit out. But I ended up pretty sore after that one.
It's a lot of
you know.
pavement.
Yeah. So I was a bit sore after that, and but then we did a bit of trekking in Croatia, and
Oh, nice.
so I've still been moving, still been active.
Okay.
And then we were home for about 4 days between that last round the world trip and this trip. And in those 4 days, I went straight down to the Gold Coast to see a guy that I'm working with all my gym work and rehab and all of that stuff. So. I've actually only been home without commitments for about 2 days since Hawaii. But, those days at the gym were really beneficial, and definitely, just gave me a little bit of something to get through this weekend. And, I'm looking forward to it. And it's a hot day. Anything can happen on a hot day. Guys slow down, and I like the heat. So if I can just keep at a medium pace all day, I might, you never know what might happen.
Love that. Hey, Pete, thanks so much for taking time. Always a pleasure to catch up and have you here at Challenge Laguna Phuket. I think it's going to be you're going to have a fun time. I heard the bike course is just really technical.
I heard it's really very hilly,
yeah.
And I've got a 26 on the back, and I might
I
might need it with what's been going on the last couple of months. But yeah, it's going to be so enjoyable racing here in Thailand. It's just a fantastic location, as you can see behind us.
Oh my God, it's awesome.
It's hard. It's going to be hard not to enjoy the race, even if it's not so enjoyable.
Love it.
It'll be good.
Pete Jacobs has been our guest. Again, we are at Challenge Laguna Phuket. We're at the Albatross restaurant. Hold on, everyone. We will be right back.